What does God look like? That question sits at the center of Rhapsody's God Got an Afro and Gold Hoops. But I don't think she's asking us to literally describe God. She's asking us something much bigger. Who taught you what divinity looks like? Who taught you what beauty looks like? What success looks like? What femininity looks like? What blackness is supposed to sound like? What hip hop is supposed to value? And more importantly, how much of what you believe about yourself actually came from you. Because before Rhapsody spins this album celebrating Black skin, challenging the music industry, mourning loved ones, examining failed relationships, embracing her aging body, protecting her culture, and tracing herself back through her bloodline, she gives us one instruction: free your mind. The album literally opens with a band broadcast. Then comes the message: you are powerful beyond measure, divine, creative, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. This is counter programming. That word, counter programming, might be the key to understanding this entire album because God Got an Afro and Gold Hoops feels less like Rhapsody trying to convince us of something new and more like her trying to help us unlearn something old. Musically, she gives that message room to breathe. The production is rich with live instrumentation, while Rhapsody constantly shifts flows, pockets, and vocal approaches. It sounds alive, and that matters because this album is obsessed with life: Black life, spiritual life, family, love, age, death, joy, memory, and freedom. On No Way, Rhapsody starts drawing boundaries around all of it. There's no way she's allowing people to vulture her culture. No way she's changing herself for fame or clout. No way she's leaving without her soul intact. Then she gets more specific. She calls for taking the culture back. She questions who gets access to hip hop, who profits from it, who controls its conversations, and who has been allowed to speak over the people who actually created it. But then the album does something important. It doesn't stay angry because freedom isn't just knowing what you reject. You also have to know what you want to make room for. So we get apple juice, flirting, attraction, desire, vulnerability, then Never Break, where Rhapsody examines relationships differently. She reflects on what she gave people, what she accepted, and what experience taught her about herself from her teens into her 20s, 30s, and now 40s. At 40, she says she exists in a space where she loves herself a lot. That is another form of counter programming because this album rejects the idea that becoming older, softer, more reflective, or more emotionally honest somehow makes you less powerful. And then we arrive at the title track, God Got an Afro. This may be the clearest visual representation of the entire project. Afros, beads, cocoa butter, brown skin, Miriam Makeba, Diana Ross, Andre 3000, Black mothers and grandmothers and ancestry. Rhapsody essentially asks, if I was created in the image of God, why have I spent my life being shown images of God that never looks like me? So she reverses it. God has an afro. God has her complexion. God looks like her mother. God looks like her grandmother. God looks like the continent they came from. And maybe most importantly, God looks like you. That thought expands even further on OMG, Love to Sunra. God becomes cosmic. Ancestry becomes cosmic. Black existence becomes something larger than whatever limitations have been placed around it here on earth. Rhapsody talks about finding God in ourselves and one another. She connects spiritually to ancestors, vibration, survival in a universe that keeps transmitting even when the broadcast gets banned. There's that idea again. You can ban the broadcast, you cannot stop the transmission. And once Rhapsody establishes that sense of self, she expands it outward. Black love isn't some sanitized version of loving Black people. It is loving Black people while understanding Black pain, prison, redlining, addiction, loss, family, queer Black love, trauma, mistakes, and grace. And Malice makes that idea painfully current when he says Nolan Wells' name. Wells was only 18 years old when he was found dead off Horn Island in Mississippi after a 4th of July trip. His family is still fighting for answers, with the circumstances surrounding his death still under investigation. And Malice doesn't speculate about what happened. He simply says his name and says he'll ride for him. In a song about Black love that matters, because sometimes Black love looks like refusing to let one of ours become another name everybody stops saying once the headlines move away. Rhapsody says she learned to breathe, grieve, let go, and face truth while still refusing to turn her back on her people. And that's important because Black pride throughout this album never requires pretending Black life is perfect. It demands the opposite. You love deeply enough to tell the truth, which brings us to pick a side. And this may be the most confrontational record on the album. Rhapsody says she chose the messenger side over the payday. She addresses the prison pipeline, sexualization, stereotyping, capitalism, record companies profiting from pain, and an industry that has convinced listeners that music with an actual message is somehow boring. Then she asks one of the album's most brutal questions. What exactly would she need to do for people to listen? Sexualize herself, kill somebody, clout chase? Because if an artist has to perform destruction to get your attention, maybe the problem isn't the artist. Maybe the audience has been programmed. And that is why the most important song on God Got an Afro and Gold Hoops isn't Pick a Side. It isn't even God Got an Afro. For me, the most important song is Free Your Mind, because Free Your Mind is the instruction manual for the entire album. Before Rhapsody can tell you God has an afro, you have to free your mind from the image of God somebody else gave you. Before she can tell you Black is beautiful, you have to free your mind from beauty standards designed to tell you otherwise. Before she can criticize hip hop's relationship with violence, sex, capitalism, and exploitation, you have to free your mind from believing popularity equals value. Before she can walk away from unhealthy relationships, she has to free herself from guilt about choosing herself. Before she can embrace getting older, she has to free herself from mourning who she used to be. Before she can truly love her people, she has to understand their pain without allowing that pain to define the totality of who they are. And Rhapsody tells us exactly what freeing your mind requires. Maybe I need to cut ties. Maybe I need to put myself first. Maybe I think too much. Maybe I need to feel more. Maybe I have too much trauma. Maybe I have too much ego. Maybe I need to stop putting everything on myself and put more on God. That maybe is important because liberation on this album isn't Rhapsody standing over everybody pretending she has discovered every answer. She's examining herself too. The album critiques an industry, but it also critiques ego. It celebrates Blackness, but it also examines Black pain. It celebrates God while admitting uncertainty. It celebrates love while recognizing when love requires boundaries. And by the final stretch of this album, all of those ideas start coming together. On the PJs, the projects become both community and something outsiders study, imitate, and profit from. On you, confidence becomes almost playful. Shine, dress well, know who you are. Remember how powerful you were before somebody convinced you otherwise. On Black is Beautiful, Rhapsody's idea of Blackness becomes intimate. Grandparents, watermelon from the garden, family stories, music, smoke, memory, skin, and inheritance. On Pretty Bird, Where You Are, she sits with grief and then turns inward, acknowledging that her body is changing. Wisdom is showing. Scars exist. The old version of her is gone, and yet there is peace in loving the person she has become. And then there is Joyful, maybe one of the simplest ideas on the entire album. Joy is resistance, dancing, loving, living. Because liberation cannot only be fighting what hurts you. At some point, freedom has to feel good. And finally, Act Two, Bloodline Growing Older, brings the album home. Africa, New Orleans, bloodline, motherhood, grandparents, parents getting older, the fear of losing them. This realization that time is moving, whether we acknowledge it or not. Rhapsody watches her mother turn gray, watches her parents prepare their home for aging. She's thinking about wills, funerals, mortality, and how quickly generations become memories. And her conclusion isn't complicated. Be present, cherish today. That may actually be the ultimate destination of freeing your mind. Be present. Because once you strip away the programming, the industry, the expectations, the beauty standards, the ego, the trauma, the unhealthy relationships, the pressure, the fear, what's left? God, family, culture, love, memory, joy, and you. And maybe that's what God Got an Afro and Gold Hoops is really saying. Rhapsody didn't make an album simply telling Black people that they are beautiful. We've heard that before. She made an album asking us to investigate anything that ever convinced us we weren't. Because if God looks like you, if divinity lives in you, if your ancestors lived through you, if your culture, your skin, your aging body, your joy, your grief, and your very existence are sacred, then the first step isn't becoming something else. It's freeing your mind enough to finally recognize what was already there. And that is why Free Your Mind is the most important song on God Got an Afro on Gold Hoops.